They say life gets simpler with age, but let me tell you, it's just not true, not when you've got a daughter like mine. My name is Frank Miller, and if you told me 10 years ago I'd be living alone in a little apartment in Pittsburgh, I'd have called you crazy. But here I am, sipping black coffee at dawn, staring at a picture of my late wife, Linda, and wondering how things turned upside down so fast. The house Linda and I built brick by brick in the suburbs of Cleveland was supposed to be our forever place. I put up the fence myself. She picked out the curtains. Every inch of that place was soaked in memories, our memories. But all it took was a few years, a greedy son-in-law, and a daughter who'd lost sight of what family means, and suddenly I was an outsider in my own story. You see, my daughter, Emily, and her husband, Scott, always thought I was just some forgetful old man. They made plans behind my back, whispering in the kitchen, talking about what's best for Dad. I played along, smiled, tried to believe they had good intentions. But it all changed the morning I overheard Emily talking on the phone. She thought I was asleep in my chair. She was telling Scott it was time to move me into an assisted living resort, so they could finally sell my house. She said it like she was ordering a pizza, like I was just another task on her to-do list. That night, I sat for hours in Linda's old recliner, the one with the frayed arm, and just stared at the ceiling. The memories, Christmases, birthdays, the little garden out back, came flooding back, and so did the hurt. But somewhere in the quiet, I found something else: resolve. I wasn't going to be anyone's burden or anyone's pawn. I'd worked too hard for too long to let my life be decided by someone else. The next morning, I put on my best shirt, one Linda used to say made me look almost handsome, and headed to the local branch of Iron Oak Bank in downtown Pittsburgh. The city looked different now, all glass and steel, but I still walked those streets like I owned them. At the bank, a fellow named Mark Reynolds shook my hand. He was younger than me, but had the kind of honest eyes I could trust. "Mr. Miller, what can I do for you?" he asked, friendly as could be. I told him straight. I just sold my family home, and I need a place to keep the money safe. I want to make sure it's secure, no one touches it but me. Mark didn't pry. He just nodded, listened, and asked all the right questions. By the time we'd signed the last paper, my nest egg, almost $900,000, was sitting in a brand new account, safe from anyone who thought they could outsmart an old man. I left the bank with my head held high. For the first time in years, I felt like I was steering my own ship again. The days that followed fell into a comforting routine: breakfast at Marty's Diner, reading the paper on the bench at Riverside Park, sometimes even a chat with old friends at the hardware store. But underneath the calm, I was preparing. I knew Emily and Scott wouldn't give up so easily. It didn't take long for their plan to surface. Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Emily, as always. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was sugar-sweet, full of fake concern. "Dad, I hope you're settling in. Scott and I have found a place for you, a wonderful place with great care and activities. We already put down a deposit. You don't have to worry about a thing." Worry? I almost laughed. They wanted me out of the way so they could cash in on the house. But the joke was on them. By then, I'd already signed the sale and moved the money. They wouldn't get a dime, not unless I decided they deserved it. That evening, as the sun set over the Monongahela River, I sat by my window and felt something I hadn't felt in years: pride. They underestimated me. They thought I'd just go quietly, say thank you, and fade away. But I was just getting started. The next morning, I woke before dawn, old habits refusing to die. I made a pot of black coffee, just the way Linda liked it, and sat at the small kitchen table in my apartment, thinking. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel like someone's afterthought. I felt alive, ready for whatever game Emily and Scott wanted to play. But I knew my daughter. She'd never just accept being outmaneuvered. Sure enough, by noon, my phone had blown up, Missed calls from Emily, from Scott, even a few texts with too many exclamation points to look genuine. I let them sit. Let them wonder. I spent the day outside, walking the leafy sidewalks of Squirrel Hill, chatting with the old-timers on their porches, soaking in the cool Pennsylvania breeze. It was evening when I finally listened to one of Emily's voicemails. "Dad, please call me. This isn't like you. We have everything ready for your move. You just need to trust us, we only want what's best for you." Her voice shook a little at the end, the way it did when she was trying not to sound angry. But I knew better. When she was a little girl, Emily would look up at me with wide eyes and say, "Daddy, you can trust me." And back then I always did. But years and a greedy husband can change a person. I could hear Scott in the background, whispering, probably reminding her to push harder, to hurry things along. That night, I called an old friend, Ed Fisher, the best real estate attorney in town. Ed and I go way back, built our first treehouse together in 4th grade. He'd helped me when Linda got sick, and I trusted him now more than ever. "Frank, you're finally calling for yourself, not someone else?" Ed joked when he picked up. I laughed. "That's right, Ed. I need to make sure the sale paperwork is airtight. And Ed, make sure everything is locked down tight. Emily and Scott can't touch a penny." He paused, then said, "I figured as much. The way your girl and her husband have been sniffing around. I'll handle it, Frank. They won't get within 10 feet of your money." It felt good to have someone in my corner. By Friday, word had gotten out. Emily must have tried calling the bank, or maybe she went by the old house and saw the "sold" sign herself. Whatever it was, I woke up to a string of angry messages. "Dad, what did you do? Why didn't you tell us? Where are you living now? We were supposed to handle the house sale together. This is completely unfair." Unfair? That word stung. For years, I'd paid their bills when Scott lost his job, fixed their car, babysat my grandkids every Saturday night so they could have date night. I'd helped Emily through college, paid for her wedding. Hell, I even let them move in when they hit a rough patch. But when I needed family, suddenly I was a burden. Now she wanted to talk about fairness. I ignored the calls and went to Marty's diner for breakfast, as usual. The waitress, Sally, slid a plate of pancakes in front of me and asked, "You okay, Mr. Miller? You look like you're wrestling a bear this morning." I smiled. "Just fighting off some old ghosts, Sally. But I'm winning." She laughed and poured me another cup of coffee. The place was buzzing with the regulars, and for a while, I let myself just enjoy the normalcy. Outside, kids played in the park, and neighbors waved as I walked by. Life moved on, even as mine was twisting in new directions. It was Saturday afternoon when the confrontation came. Emily showed up at my apartment, her face red, Scott lurking behind her like a shadow. She didn't even knock, just barged in, all righteous indignation. "Dad, what were you thinking? You can't just sell the house without telling us. We had plans." Scott chimed in, voice cold as ice. "That house was supposed to be your legacy, Frank. You promised Emily." I cut him off. "I promised nothing. That house was mine and Linda's. I built it with my own 2 hands. No one has a claim to it but me." Emily's eyes filled with tears, real or fake I couldn't tell anymore. "We just want to help you, Dad. You're not getting any younger." That stung, but I stood my ground. "If help means being shipped off to some nursing home so you two can play house in my place, then no thank you. I'm doing just fine." Scott glared at me. "You're making a mistake." I looked him right in the eye. "The only mistake I made was letting you two treat me like an afterthought. Not anymore." Emily was quiet then. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, but she just turned away, her shoulders stiff. They left without another word. And for the first time, I felt a weight lift from my chest. I'd stood up for myself, truly stood up. The apartment was quiet after they left, but it felt like peace, not loneliness. Later, I called Ed and told him what happened. He just chuckled. "Frank, you did the right thing. Now let's make sure you stay protected." That night, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights blink on, one by one. Somewhere out there, Emily and Scott were stewing, plotting their next move. But for once, I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The next few days passed in a strange mix of calm and anticipation. I found myself waking up early, brewing coffee, and watching the sunrise over the city. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to decide my fate. My phone was quieter than usual. Emily and Scott must have realized anger wasn't getting them anywhere. But I knew my daughter, and I knew this silence wouldn't last. Monday morning brought a new surprise. There was a knock at my door, a polite, rapid tap, nothing like Emily's usual impatient banging. When I opened it, a woman in a navy pantsuit smiled at me, a folder tucked under her arm. "Mr. Miller? I'm Lisa Carter from Carter Senior Services. Your daughter Emily reached out. She wanted us to discuss your options for assisted living arrangements. May I come in?" I almost laughed, but instead I invited her to the table, poured her a cup of coffee, and let her run through her rehearsed speech about vibrant communities and personalized care. She talked for 10 minutes before realizing I wasn't buying any of it. "Lisa," I said gently, "I appreciate your time, but you can tell Emily I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself. And as for my living arrangements, those are my decision, not hers." She left with a polite smile and a business card, but her eyes said she'd seen this all before. I waited until she was out of sight, then called Ed Fisher. "Ed, they're stepping up their game. Emily's trying to get me institutionalized." Ed just laughed. "Don't worry, Frank. The law's on your side. Unless you're a danger to yourself, nobody can force you into a home. Just keep a record of everything. And Frank, don't let them wear you down." I hung up, feeling equal parts angry and relieved. Emily's persistence stung, but it only strengthened my resolve. After lunch, I walked to the park and sat beneath an old maple tree, watching kids toss a football and remembering when Emily was that age, carefree, always smiling, nothing like the calculating woman she'd become. By Wednesday, the calls started again. This time, Emily's voice was softer, almost apologetic. "Dad, I'm sorry about the way things happened. Maybe we rushed you. Can we just talk, please? Scott and I are worried about you." It was classic Emily, guilt first, then the plea for control. I didn't answer. Instead, I spent the afternoon going through old photo albums, flipping through decades of birthdays and vacations, Linda's gentle smile in every shot. That night, I wrote a letter to Emily. Not an angry one, just honest. "Emily, you are still my daughter and I still love you. But I'm not your problem to solve. I am not an old piece of furniture to be moved around. Your mother and I built our lives with sweat and sacrifice. I hope one day you'll remember that. Dad." I left it on my desk, unsure if I'd ever send it. Thursday morning, I got a call from the manager at Iron Oak Bank. "Mr. Miller, I just wanted to confirm, we received an inquiry from your daughter regarding your accounts. We told her, as per your instructions, that all your information is strictly confidential and she is not authorized to access anything." I thanked him, heart pounding. Emily was getting desperate. That evening, I decided it was time to send a message of my own. I called my grandson, Ethan, a college freshman, and invited him to lunch. We met at the campus diner, and for an hour, I listened to him talk about classes, baseball, and the world he was building for himself. Before we parted, I handed him an envelope. "Ethan, if you ever need help, you come to me directly. Not your mom, not Scott, me. And don't let anyone tell you what your grandpa can or can't do." He grinned. "Deal, Grandpa?" That conversation gave me hope. The next generation wasn't lost yet. The weekend arrived, and with it, a storm. Late Saturday night, I heard pounding at my apartment door. I opened it to find Emily, her hair in disarray, Scott hovering behind her with clenched fists. They pushed inside before I could object. "You had no right!" Emily spat, tears streaking her face. "You've humiliated us. People are asking questions. Why did you do this?" Scott's face was red with fury. "You made us look like fools, Frank. We trusted you, and you stabbed us in the back." I stood tall. "You trusted me? You were planning to shove me in a home and sell off everything your mother and I built. You wanted to erase me from my own life. You're upset because I refused to let you." Emily sobbed, her anger collapsing into grief. "We were just trying to help." "Help yourselves," I corrected. "But I'm done letting you dictate what happens to me. I hope someday you understand that." Scott looked ready to explode, but Emily pulled him away. They left, slamming the door behind them, leaving me in the quiet. I sank into Linda's old chair and let out a long, shaky breath. I felt sadness, sure, but underneath, a hard-earned peace. The battle wasn't over. I could feel it in my bones. But I'd finally found my footing, and I wasn't about to give it up again. The Sunday after Emily and Scott's midnight outburst, the city felt washed clean by a summer rain. I sat on my little balcony, listening to church bells echo down the street, letting the morning breeze cool my thoughts. Peace, for a few hours at least. But peace never lasts. Around noon, I got a call from Ed Fisher. His voice was lower than usual, the kind of tone that says bad news is coming. "Frank, I just got some paperwork forwarded to me. Looks like Emily and Scott are trying to file for guardianship over you. They're claiming you're incapacitated and can't manage your own affairs." For a second, my hand shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. "Guardianship? They're trying to have me declared incompetent?" "Yeah," Ed said, sighing. "I see this sort of thing sometimes. Usually it doesn't get far, but they have a lawyer, and they're pushing hard. Don't worry. I'll handle it. Just be ready. They might show up with more than just words this time." I thanked him and hung up, anger and betrayal swirling inside me. All my life, I'd worked to give my daughter security and love, and now she was painting me as a helpless fool in front of the whole world. But if they thought I'd roll over, they didn't know me at all. Monday morning, I made a list. First, I called my doctor and scheduled a full evaluation, just to have proof of my mental state on file. Dr. Porter had known me 20 years, and after an hour of tests and conversation, he gave me a letter. "Frank Miller is in full control of his faculties and able to manage all his personal and financial affairs independently." Next, I visited Iron Oak Bank. Mark Reynolds greeted me with a worried look. "We've had a few more calls from your daughter, Mr. Miller. She even came by yesterday asking about joint accounts." "She's not authorized for anything," I said. Mark smiled. "I know. But you might want to update your security codes, just in case." We sat in his office, updating every password and adding two-factor authentication. I felt a sense of control returning, small but solid. I left the bank and bought myself a slice of pecan pie from the bakery down the street, a little reward for standing my ground. That afternoon, I started hearing from old friends. The gossip mill in Pittsburgh was spinning fast. Emily and Scott were telling anyone who'd listen that I'd lost my mind, that I was wandering the neighborhood, that I'd put myself in danger. They were laying the groundwork for their case, hoping someone would back them up. It stung, hearing my name twisted in people's mouths, but I knew who I was. And the people who mattered did too. Then, something shifted. My grandson Ethan showed up at my door, out of breath and pale. "Grandpa, Mom's been calling me nonstop. She said that you need help. Are you okay?" I smiled. Tried to steady my hands. "I'm just fine, Ethan. Better than ever, in fact. Sometimes people say things when they're scared of losing control. Don't let anyone convince you I'm not myself. He nodded, a little uncertain. I told him about the doctor's letter, about the passwords, about everything. He listened, and when he left, I could see some of the worry had lifted from his eyes. By midweek, the legal wheels were turning. Ed called, updating me on the case. Frank, they're pushing hard, but your doctor's letter is ironclad. Just keep your cool. Don't let them get a reaction. They're hoping you'll lose your temper or slip up. I took his advice. The next time Emily called, I answered and kept my voice calm. Dad, please, just let us help. We're only trying to protect you. Protect me from what, Emily? From living my own life? From making my own choices? I raised you better than this. For a moment, there was silence on the line. I thought I heard her crying, or maybe she was just angry. Dad, we need that money. She started, but caught herself. We need you safe. The slip was all I needed to hear. This was never about my safety. It was always about the money. That night, I pulled out the letter I'd written her and finally mailed it. Sometimes words on a page are the only thing that can cut through the noise. A few days later, I found an envelope slipped under my door, no return address, just my name in Emily's handwriting. Inside was a family photo from 10 years ago, back when Linda was still alive, when Emily still called me Daddy, and hugged me just because. On the back she'd written, I'm sorry. I miss how things used to be. I stared at the photo for a long time, my heart aching. Love doesn't vanish overnight, but trust, well, that's another story. By Friday, Ed called again. Good news, Frank. Their guardianship petition was denied. Doctor's letter did the trick. It's over for now, but they may try something else. I thanked him and felt the relief wash over me. I wasn't naive. I knew they might regroup, try some new scheme. But for the first time in weeks, I let myself relax. That night, I sat on my balcony as the city glowed golden in the summer dusk. I thought of Linda, of old friends, of a life built with hard work and stubbornness. And I promised myself I'd hold on to my independence, no matter what it cost. You'd think, after the guardianship petition fell apart, that Emily and Scott would finally let things go. But people like them, once they taste control, they don't give up that easy. The air felt heavier every day, like a storm was gathering on the horizon. Saturday morning, I stopped at the local hardware store, picking up a new light bulb for my porch and chatting with old friends. Word travels fast in Pittsburgh, and more than one neighbor squeezed my shoulder and said, Hang in there, Frank. We've got your back. I didn't ask for pity, but I couldn't help feeling grateful that not everyone believed the stories Emily was spreading. I tried to keep things normal. Visited Linda's grave, left fresh flowers, and told her about the mess her family was in. Sometimes I could almost hear her voice, calm and steady. Do what's right, Frank. Don't let them take your kindness for weakness. I promised her I wouldn't. On Sunday, the phone rang again. This time, it was Scott. Frank, listen. Let's just cut to the chase. You're alone now. You don't have anyone but us. Why not make things easier for everybody? Sign the power of attorney. Let us take care of your finances. You can relax for once. His voice was as smooth as a used car salesman, but I heard the desperation behind it. Maybe his debts were piling up, or maybe Emily was giving him hell at home. Either way, I didn't take the bait. I'm doing just fine, Scott. You and Emily have your own lives to worry about. I'm not interested in signing anything. Please stop calling. He tried to argue, but I hung up before he could finish. For the first time in a long while, I felt strong. Their approval didn't matter. I had survived war, recession, and losing the love of my life. I could survive this too. Monday morning, there was a commotion in the hallway. I peered out and saw Ethan, my grandson, arguing with his mother just outside my door. He spotted me and slipped away from Emily's grip, rushing into my apartment. Grandpa, Mom wants me to convince you to move in with us. She says it's safer, but I know you don't want that. I smiled, feeling both sad and proud. Ethan, thank you for telling me the truth. I appreciate you looking out for me, but I need to do this my way. He nodded, worry lining his young face. I just want us to be a family again. I wish things could be as simple as they once were. Me too, kiddo. Me too. Emily stormed in, her voice tight with frustration. Dad, you're being stubborn. I'm trying to help you, and you keep pushing us away. What if something happens to you? I'm not pushing you away, Emily. I just want you to respect my choices. That's all I ever wanted. She looked at me, tears glistening in her eyes. For a moment, she was that little girl again, begging for one more bedtime story. But then Scott appeared behind her, arms crossed, jaw set. The old spell was broken. Let's go, Emily, he said. He made his decision. They left, the door closing a little harder than necessary. I stood there for a moment, listening to the silence. It was heavy, but it was mine. That week, the pressure ramped up. Letters from lawyers arrived, each one full of threats and legal jargon, contesting the house sale, accusing me of fraud, demanding an audit of my finances. I brought them all to Ed, who shook his head and said, Desperate people do desperate things. Let me handle it, Frank. Days blurred together. I filled the hours with small routines, reading on the porch, tending to my potted plants, helping a neighbor fix a leaky faucet. Life was simpler, quieter, but I felt the weight of every memory pressing down on me. One evening, I got a call from an old coworker, Jim. We hadn't talked in years, but he'd heard through the grapevine what was happening. Frank, you need anything, you let me know. Don't let them bully you. You earned everything you have. His support was like a light in the gloom. I realized then that, while blood might turn cold, true friends never did. Friday night, just as I was settling in with an old western on TV, there was a sharp knock at the door. I opened it to find Scott and Emily, but this time, they weren't alone. A police officer stood behind them. Mr. Miller, the officer began, your daughter is concerned about your welfare. She claims you may not be able to care for yourself. Would you mind answering a few questions? I kept my cool, pulled out the doctor's letter, and explained the situation. The officer read it, nodded, and apologized for the trouble. Emily looked mortified, Scott looked angry. This is humiliating, she whispered as they left. You didn't have to do this, Dad. You didn't have to make it a fight. I watched them walk away, heartsick but unbroken. I hadn't wanted a fight, but I was prepared for one. That night, as rain tapped against the window, I sat in Linda's chair and made a decision. I would never let anyone, not even family, steal my dignity. Some things were worth fighting for, even if it meant standing alone. The weeks rolled on, each day a quiet test of patience and pride. I tried to keep my world small, coffee at dawn, a stroll in the park, a crossword on the porch. Yet Emily and Scott's shadow hung over everything. Their anger didn't burn out, if anything, it just grew colder, sharper. The letters from their lawyer kept coming, piling up like fallen leaves. I brought every one to Ed Fisher, who kept his tone steady. They're just trying to scare you, Frank. You've done everything right. But the truth is, even when you're in the right, family war takes its toll. Some nights, I lay awake, remembering when Emily was little and would crawl into my lap, trusting me to keep her safe from monsters under the bed. Now, she was the one turning me into a villain in her story, and I was powerless to set it straight. I got another call from Ethan, my grandson, this time late at night. His voice trembled. Grandpa, Mom's talking about getting a court order. She's saying things about you on social media, telling everyone you've lost your mind. She even told my friends' parents you were dangerous. I sighed. Don't worry about me, Ethan. Just remember you know who I am. I'm proud of you, son. He was quiet. I love you, Grandpa. I wish things could go back to how they were. Me too, Ethan. More than anything. Friday morning, I woke to a text from an old friend, Jim from the hardware store. Frank saw some posts from Emily on Facebook. If you need a witness for your character, you've got me. Hang in there. The support helped, but it couldn't dull the ache. It was one thing to lose money or even a house, but to lose your own child's trust? That's a wound that doesn't heal. That day, as I walked through the park, I ran into Reverend Cole from our old church. He looked at me over his glasses, gentle but firm. Frank, word gets around. I hear you've been through a lot. Don't let bitterness take root. You only get one family. I nodded, unsure what to say. I just wanted to be respected, Reverend. Not used. Not lied about. He patted my shoulder. Sometimes you have to love people enough to let them go, at least until they remember what really matters. I tried to take his words to heart. The next week, Emily tried a new approach. She sent me a letter, handwritten, the first since Linda's funeral. It started with apologies, but quickly turned into accusations. You've always cared more about your own pride than about your family. Why couldn't you just trust me? Why did you sell the house out from under us? It ended with, I hope you're happy, living alone. For once, I didn't write back. Instead, I asked Ed to set up a meeting with Emily and Scott, somewhere public. We chose a quiet coffee shop near the river, one Linda used to love. Ed came along for support. When they arrived, Emily looked tired, worn down by the fight. Scott was tense, eyes darting between me and Ed. I spoke first, my voice steady. Emily, I didn't want things to end up like this. I wanted you to remember the good we had, not the fights over money. But I can't give you what you want, not if it costs me my dignity. Scott broke in, voice tight. You think you're the victim here? You left us with nothing. You made us look like fools. I shook my head. You did that to yourselves. I offered you love, help, even my home, but you wanted control. I won't let anyone take that from me, not even my own daughter. Emily looked at me, tears brimming in her eyes. Why, Dad? Why did you push us away? I softened a little, thinking of Linda, of the life we built. I never wanted to push you away, Emily. But you have to learn, family is built on respect, not entitlement. I hope one day you'll understand that. There was a long, painful silence. Ed cleared his throat and passed Emily the letter from my doctor and a copy of my bank statements, every transaction legal, every step documented. Frank's decisions are his alone, Ed said. The law is on his side. Scott glared at him but said nothing. Emily just nodded, wiping her tears. We left it at that. No forgiveness, not yet, but maybe a truce. I walked home along the river, the city lights shimmering on the water. I thought of all I'd lost, but also of what I'd found, a hard-won freedom, and the knowledge that even when love hurts, you can't let yourself be trampled. That night, as rain pattered against the window, I made peace with my choices. I'd stood my ground. I'd kept my dignity. Maybe, just maybe, I'd given Emily something to think about too. The summer faded into fall, and with it, some of the heat and bitterness of those long, difficult months. My life settled into a new rhythm, peaceful, even if a little lonely. Each morning, I'd walk to the little coffee shop by the river, nodding to familiar faces, sometimes sharing a story or two with anyone willing to listen. In a way, I became the old regular, the guy people waved to, the one who always left a little extra tip for the staff. One afternoon, as the leaves turned gold and red, I got a surprise. Ethan stopped by my apartment, carrying a box of donuts and a smile that was all his own. Thought you might want some company, Grandpa, he said, settling in across from me at the kitchen table. We talked for hours, about his classes, his hopes for the future, about Linda's legendary apple pie. He told me his mom was still struggling, still angry, but that she missed me, even if she wouldn't admit it. She asks about you, you know, Ethan said. She worries. Maybe not in the way you want, but she does. I nodded, feeling the old ache softer now. I know, son. I know. A few days later, a letter arrived in my mailbox, Emily's handwriting unmistakable on the envelope. I almost didn't open it, afraid of more accusations. But something told me to try. Inside was a simple note. Dad, I'm sorry for everything. For the things I said, for the things I tried to do. I know I went too far. I hope one day you can forgive me, even if I haven't earned it yet. I'm not sure how to fix things, but I do miss you. Love. Emily. No promises, no demands, just the truth, raw and vulnerable. I sat at my table for a long while, the letter trembling in my hands. Linda would have told me to reach back, to let love try again, no matter how much it hurt. That evening, I called Emily. The phone rang 3 times before she answered, her voice small and tired. Hi, Dad. Hi, Em. I took a breath. I got your letter. Silence then. I meant what I wrote. I know you did, I said softly. I'm not sure we can put everything back the way it was, but maybe we can start over. No more games, no more power struggles. Just father and daughter. She started to cry. For a moment, all the years fell away. She was my little girl again. I'd like that, Dad, she whispered. It wasn't a full reconciliation, not yet. There were wounds that needed time, trust that needed to be rebuilt. But it was a beginning. And that's all anyone can ask for. The next week, Ethan invited me to a baseball game at his college. For the first time in months, I sat in the stands, cheering, laughing, letting the crisp autumn air fill my lungs. Emily was there, a few rows down. We smiled at each other, not the forced smiles of months past, but the real kind, the ones that carried hope. That night, as I walked home beneath the bright city lights, I thought about Linda, about the house I'd built and lost, about all the years and sacrifices that had brought me here. I realized I didn't regret any of it, not even the pain. Because in the end, I'd found something that mattered more than any house, more than any sum of money. I'd found myself again. Now, in this little apartment filled with photos and memories, I finally feel at peace. My life isn't what I planned, but it's still mine, and as long as I'm breathing, I intend to live it on my own terms. Emily and I still have a long road ahead. Maybe there will be more setbacks. Maybe not all wounds will heal. But I know this: I am nobody's burden, nobody's pawn. I am Frank Miller, and I decide what my life is worth. And as the first snow dusted the city rooftops, I sat by the window, a cup of coffee in hand, and smiled. Because sometimes starting over isn't the end. It's the best part of the story.